You want Ultimate Conductor Tyranno to be banned or extinct, but he's not. What's up, ladies and gents? Today, Joe here with another deck profile for YugiBOOM. Today I got a mouthful for you. It is Shaddoll Dino Invoked. I know that sounds like a lot, but I can't play Shaddoll Dino Thunder Dragons anymore because Colossus has been banned for quite some time. So this is what I cooked up. Still a lot of ratios. Excited to hear what you guys have to say in the comics if anybody's running this deck and has some suggestions. But I've tested with the crew here because we can't really do shit through COVID still, at least here. So in the Bay Area. So from now, I've cooked up this deck and hopefully you guys like it. Let's get into it. Starting off with our monsters, keep in mind my ratios for a lot of monsters, some which might be important if it was pure versions of the deck, are a little off, so, you know, feel free to slam me in the comments all you want, but just keep an open mind. But regardless, no Dino deck is complete without 3 Soul-Eating Oviraptor. I mean, Oviraptor is just one of those cards that's too good to not run in any Dino deck. So regardless of what your ratios might be, Oviraptor just needs to be at 3. Searcher and a Foolish Burial for any of your Dinos. 2 Ultimate Conductor Tyranno. I love this card at 3, but in this version of this deck, already being a 42 card deck also, keep that in mind. There's just no room for 3, and it's so easy to get out and search when you need it, especially with your double evolution pill to just summon it straight from the deck, that you really don't need 3 copies in this version. You're going to want to sit on him, a Winda, and something else usually as your like dominant boards. So just 2 UTC. The first hot take I think I have is 2 Miscellaneousaurus. When it was just Dino Shaddoll, this was at 3, but only reason I would still put this at 3 is because sometimes you need it in your opening hand to just protect you, to make sure everything goes off. But right now, it's kind of nice that I have 2 other archetypes that can equally make annoying monsters, so I'm not banking on Miscellaneousaurus as much as I thought I would be. So in testing right now, he is currently on 2, but that might change drastically. Paired at 2 also with Miscellaneousaurus is going to be your baby Cerosaurus. I mean, to be honest, if your hand sucks and they're not going to OTK you, sometimes it's nice to just like be able to set up a couple dinos and like hope you can get to that point of popping him with a different way than Ultimate Conductor Tyranno. But realistically, he's only here to be popped with Ultimate Conductor Tyranno because it's just so amazing. Flip everything face down, then he resolves and you get anything from the deck. If you haven't Oviraptored that turn, you summon Oviraptor and get a search and a dump at the same time. And it's just a really amazing card. Plus he's goddamn adorable, so you can't not run him. For the one-of dinos, there's quite a few, but they're all powerhouses and very searchable. We still run the 1 Quatless because, I mean, it's a classic play to just summon an Oviraptor, dump him, and search the pill. I used to run Quatless at 2, but my justification for running him at 2 before was he was an extra lure target if he was dead with 2 in the hand, and even back in the days when I sometimes ran 3. But right now, it's just so pointless to have more than 1. Opening him is just as bad as opening your 1 Darlington Cobra if that was in a deck you had, you know? Like, I've just learned at 1, it's way better. Going with that is also Giant Rex. There's no way in hell you'll ever need more than 1 Giant Rex. He can be used more than once per turn, and also he just facilitates a lot of things in this deck as a one-time use. So another card you don't want to see in the hand, and having more than 1 copy just makes that a little bit less possible. Next one is, of course, I still run the Jirac-Aiello. I still run the 2 same tuners that a lot of people have been running in dinos for a long time, and as cliche and simplistic as they are, they just get the job done and offer effects that most cards in this deck don't do. And it's just so easy to do with Miscellaneousaurus. I really don't see why you wouldn't find room for Aiello still. 1 Doggeron, because we live in a meta full of, well, no longer VFD, but Dragoons and a lot of really annoying monsters that don't have many 1 cards outs. So having a searchable kaiju is just amazing. Yeah, you can't search it with Fossil Dig, but your Fossil Dig will get your Oviraptor, which will get your Doggeron. So, and sometimes you even open it, which is also amazing going second. Like, just kaijuing their amazing monster that they thought was going to keep them comfortable, and then you just go off from there. And then the last dinosaur that's very, very good, and I know is a little hard to obtain, but is still just a one-of for me in my deck, is of course your anima-adorned Archosaur. Self-explanatory, I know a lot of you already know what this card does, but he's just too good to not have in any Dino deck, whether it be pure, just Dino Shaddoll, just Dino whatever, True King, whatever you mixed it with. There's no way you don't run this card. I mean, any card that facilitates you just cycling through your deck easy and getting stuff out, like, that is going to be part of your play, he essentially becomes an extra copy of those important cards in your deck. So, yeah, I know it's a little bit harder to get, but pray for that reprint and get your hands on one because it's 100% necessary in my opinion. That is it for our dinosaurs. We are a little monster heavy in this deck, but it's not too big of a deal. But going on for our Shaddoll package, I have 2 Shaddoll Beast, 2 Shaddoll Hedgehog, and the 1 Shaddoll Dragon. No more, no less to me. I used to run just these 4, but the little pop from Dragon is just so nice sometimes, and him still being a 1900 beater that you don't have to set all the time. But your Shaddoll's main purpose is just to be used for fodder or used from the deck if you draw into Shaddoll Fusion. But realistically, they just happen to work with the deck well, so it's nice to have them in the deck. For our Invoked, I only run 2 Alistair. Now, before you butcher me, you dick-riding Invoked players out there, I'm going to let you know something. For me, personally, in this build at least, with 3 archetypes together, which is already a mouthful, I didn't need 3 Alistair because I do run Terraforming and 3 Magical Meltdown, and the Invoked is not the most powerful part of this deck. And yes, the Alistairs can still be used for Allure, and they can also pump your Shaddoll monsters in battle, but in testing, I needed to make room for 1 Archosaur, and I didn't want to drop any of the other monsters in the deck or spells, so you can fanboy on Alistair and Invoked all you want, but I only run 2 in this deck, and if you don't like it, suck my ass. Going on, 2 Ash Blossom. Now, the only thing I might do in this deck, because it's proven to be actually pretty decent, is if I were to take any monsters out or drop their ratios, I would just make room for more hand traps in this deck to make it more aggressive. If you could add a 3rd Ash or find room for 2 Effect Veiler or DD Crow alongside this Ash, this deck could be very, very aggressive. For now, I keep a lot of the hand traps for a side for this deck, and even though I won't be showcasing a side, I'll make sure I'll give you guys some tips on what I think make good side deck cards for this. But right now, just 2 Ash in the main, because I feel like Ash and DD Crow are just 2 cards you gotta have nowadays. Like, there's no way to not have advantage without those cards. So they just become completely necessary at that point. Moving on to our spells. 3 Fossil Dig. Fossil Dig is just too good to not be used, especially at 3. Searches literally most of the dinos that are going to start your plays in this deck. So, gotta have that Fossil Dig. As I mentioned before, I do run 3 Allure of Darkness just because, you know, this deck can sometimes brick pretty hard, especially since I'm not running some of the newer Shaddolls, which would be good calls, thanks to my buddy Machuca letting me know that I should experiment with the new Shaddolls soon, that came out in the structure deck. But Allure just helps you get through a lot of those dead cards. A lot of your monsters happen to be dark, so it just works out really well. Or if you happen to open double Evolution Pill with a Quatless in your hand, sometimes it's nice with an Allure. As I mentioned, 2 double Evolution Pill, even though we only run 1 Quatless, it's still nice to sometimes hard draw this card at 2, especially after you have already gotten a UTC on board. So double Evolution Pill is just nice. And then the other thing that was hard for me to do in this deck, and will probably be my first change in further testing when I get more time with this deck, is I only have 2 Shaddoll Fusion for now, and I miss 3 and 1 L Shaddoll Fusion. It's just at 42 it was already hard, but choosing to go second, this is probably one of the better cards you want to open with, especially if your opponent has an extra deck monster. But I went against my better judgment and just ran 2 for now, but it's been pretty decent, to be honest. Like, it's not completely bad. So with that being said, part of the reason I only run Shaddoll Fusion at 2 is because I don't know if it's just dumb luck, I draw my Shaddolls a lot, and sometimes I need to use them not from the deck. And so having the Magical Meltdown with the Terraforming and the 2 Invocation, you can still use Invocation for a different fusion monster too. It just can't have the benefit of banishing from the graveyard if it's not for an invoked monster. So for the Invoked engine, along with my 2 Alistair, is 3 Magical Meltdown and the 2 Invocation, of course. And if your invocations aren't first from Fusion Enforcers, then don't play the deck, please. That's just how we feel here at YugiBOOM. We may be rogue, but we still have a little bit of class. For our one-of spells, it's just 1 Foolish Burial and 1 Gold Sarcophagus. Foolish Burial, way too good. Good for Shaddolls, good for sending your Giant Rex if you have a UTC in hand, good for dumping Quatless. Just so many reasons why Foolish Burial is good in this deck. And Gold Sarcophagus may only be for Giant Rex, but that's literally good enough of a reason to have this card. You play Gold Sarcophagus, banish Giant Rex from the deck, he summons, normal summon Oviraptor. Now you have already a Lagia for your play, depending on what else you have in your hand. So Gold Sarcophagus, Foolish Burial, both limited to 1. For reason, sucks, but still mandatory in the deck. And for our last card in the deck, which is our only trap, I would recommend maybe some Solemns and stuff for the side if you plan on going first a lot more with this deck. But I do run 1 of the Schism. I don't run any of the new monsters as good as they are because I haven't had time to really experiment with them. But Schism is just too good of a card not to have. Especially the fact that you can wait till they summon something and then you almost kind of like Super Poly-esque-ish with this card. So Schism just too good. Make sure you get your hands. It does suck that it went up a little bit in recent time, and if I'm being honest, this isn't mine. But you know, get it. Really good trap card, really solid. I'm just running 1. If this wasn't a 3 archetype mouthful of a deck, I might run more of it, but for now it's been doing really well at 1 for me. Now the best part of the deck in my opinion, maybe not my choices specifically, but the extra deck. You have a lot of options for the extra deck in this, and I'm still cycling through. But to start off, for our Exceeds, the only Exceeds we run in the deck is 2 Lagia because Solemn Judgment, Dolka because you can use it twice in a turn and negating monster effects is never a bad thing, and Dweller because everybody and their mama's got grave effects nowadays, so you gotta run Dweller. That's the only rank 4s I run. I know there's really good rank 4s out there and I want to run more, but for now this has been solid enough. Only link we run in the deck is one of the only good links for this deck. Thought about running Cross Sheep and stuff like I used to, but I don't know, like it's so good, but I couldn't find the space for it. So right now the only link is Verte Anaconda. I mean, any deck that fuses, you can't not have this card. That's the other justification for me not having Shaddoll Fusion at 3, is because if getting a Shaddoll Fusion off, like getting a Winda out, is that important to stopping a deck or something like that, I still have a way to guarantee myself that card. Yeah, and it's expensive and it's only 1, and if they kill it or negated summon, I'm effed, but still good enough to run. And Verte Anaconda, just such a damn good card. You cannot go without this card in this deck. For our fusions, quite a lot. I run 2 Winda because it's not only one of the best in terms of a lockdown card, it's also the easiest to make, with primarily most of this deck being dark. We do run 1 Construct, even though it's pretty hard for us to make inherently with our own monsters, just because Construct is so good. And then my quote-unquote suspect choices would be I run Shekignaga and Grista. Reason I run them is because not only do they negate an effect in a summon, is the fact that they are Earth and Fire helps me get Giant Rex and Miscellaneous Saurus to the graveyard from deck in other ways than I normally could. And I feel like that reason alone is really good, and they also both happen to have pretty inherently good effects. Plus, Shekignaga got the 3k booty, so why would you not run that? For the Invokes, and the Invokes is a really small package, which kind of sucks. But I run the Kaliga because also a good lockdown effect and easiest to make in our deck. The 1 Makaba, as much as I want to run more Makaba, similar to the Construct, we don't have very many lights inherently in our deck, and unless we want to rely on our opponent's light monsters, Makaba is not easy to make as great as he is in this deck. And then I do run Raijin because out of all the other attributes, he has the best effect in my opinion. I mean, I don't know how to say this one's name, but this one is also very good, especially if you're playing like Mermails or something. But one thing I'll mention is, even though I'm not showcasing a side, if I were to make a side for this deck, it would be a bunch of hand traps or traps that save my Antithesis, and it would be Super Polys and all the invoked attributes, because I don't main Super Poly anymore, but your side deck should definitely include all the invoked attributes, Super Poly, and probably a Mud Dragon and a Starving Venom Fusion Dragon. If I could dumb this deck down a little bit and make it more meta and find ways to make those fit in the main, I totally would. But with the 3 archetypes in it, I didn't find room for the super polys in the main anymore. So these are my only invoked cards, and if you don't shoot me over the only 2 Alistairs, this will probably be what you shoot me for. So this one I'll agree I deserve it for at least. Then the last 2 extra deck monsters of the entire deck is going to be our only 2 synchros, which has remained the same for quite some time. High Speed Roy Chumbara and our Trishula Dragon of the Ice Barrier. Just both really easy to make. 5, so just the Oviraptor and your Aiello, or Oviraptor and typically your Giant Rex and the Aiello to make your Trishula. And that's pretty much it for the extra deck, and that's what I've been experimenting with so far. So like always, guys, please make sure you like, comment, subscribe. Go ahead and give your construction criticisms in the comments. We appreciate any tips people have to give us out there. We are the Rogue Network. That's our little tag we like to run off of, giving you guys rogue options and a little bit of anti-meta, not so much constant expensive decks that you don't really want to play and make. Make sure you follow us on our social medias that we're trying to be more active on. And once again, let us know any other deck profiles you would like to see. Later.